I want to focus in on right-wing media's role in all of this in regard to the shooting that occurred at Club Q in Colorado Springs, and how it is so obvious that because we have this acceptance of deep hatred of LGBTQ people within certain spaces, namely in this conversation, right-wing media, and we've also talked about how, while not all, too many church settings as well, I want to focus in, like I said, on right-wing media and how they play a role in perpetuating these lies. So the overarching kind of summary you have to get from this is that what they're doing is saying that the LGBTQ community, or sometimes they'll say gender theory or the LGBTQ agenda, is grooming children. That's what they've said time and time again. And one of their favorite terms is groomers. I saw an analysis recently about how many times some of these right-wing politicians use the word groomers on Twitter. And what they're trying to do is connect, whether it's the LGBTQ community, or they focus a lot on drag queens, and try to say that these groups they have the motive of grooming children. And what is so dishonest about that is twofold. Number one, what the quote unquote agenda of LGBTQ people is to promote people being able to live as who they are. That's the agenda. Boom, I exposed the big secret. The second part is that you genuinely don't care about the actual problem we have in our country with child sexual assault. Sometimes we'll talk about child sex trafficking, with grooming, with all of these different specific children-related sexual abuse scenarios and situations. You don't actually care about solving that if you're trying to pretend like the root cause, or even the association that people should be making, is between people who want to be themselves and a horrible act of heinous violence. They're trying to connect that because politically it stokes a whole lot of fear and rage when the people who for decades, so many in the right, have been deeply weirded out by, afraid of, disgusted by, if you can point at them and say, they're the ones coming after your kids, you get a level of rage from your average listener or viewer that you probably couldn't get on any other issue. And we understand that rage, anger is one of the best ways to motivate people, whether it's to donate to you, to watch your show, to go do certain actions. Anger motivates people more than anything else. And so they're using that fear, that hatred towards LGBTQ people that's already there, and adding on the layer of they're coming after your kids to cause incredible harm. So here's a little bit from Media Matters, and I'll show you a bunch of examples of this. For months, anti-LGBTQ account Libs of TikTok has used Twitter to publicize the locations and organizers of drag events while spreading salacious accusations of what might happen there. Recent segments on Fox News have claimed that drag queens are a part of a plot to sexualize children. Ben Shapiro of the Daily Wire has positioned drag as a threat to civilization, while his colleague Matt Walsh compared drag shows to cancer, calling for an aggressive approach to fighting it. Media observers have warned about the dangers of his unchecked rhetoric, the consequences of which are increasingly evident and dire. Boston Children's Hospital was targeted with another bomb threat last week after being the target of a right-wing fear-mongering campaign over its provision of gender-affirming care. At the start of November, as we covered on the Luke Beasley Show, a donut shop in Tulsa, Oklahoma that had hosted a drag event was targeted by an arsonist. He threw a Molotov cocktail into a donut shop for hosting a fun event. I honestly want some of these right-wingers to just go to a drag show and realize it's not what you're being told that it is. Just like a fun, happy-go-lucky type event. Okay, now we have to listen to this stuff that is going to get me so angry, but here's a lot of these types of lies and misrepresentations being spewed from Tucker Carlson.
So let's say you're interested in sexualizing children, and unfortunately some people are. What would you do? You might have a drag queen story hour.
If you don't see that as teetering on the edge of losing...
Sorry, this is a compilation of multiple. We have a number of different things from Tucker, but this is a compilation of multiple right-wingers.
...civilization, then you and I just disagree.
Pernicious and sick drag queen story hours.
Libs of TikTok, one of the most informative accounts on Twitter, and because it is so informative, it keeps getting banned.
Adult male putting on women's clothing and dancing and talking about sexual themes with other people's children.
Drag queen story time.
Don't want them in preschool teaching them to twerk.
Why would any parent allow their child to be sexualized by...
Okay, again, can't even go any further with that. But what they're connecting is grooming and the sexualization of children, which is a real problem, and drag queens, which again, I think the distinction should be made on occasion that LGBTQ people, the drag queens, two separate groups. I've seen multiple times in the conversations about this, someone mixing up one of the victims or people who survived the shooting at Club Q, who was getting interchanged drag queen for trans woman, two separate things. But they are connecting both in this conversation around grooming of children and how it's the LGBTQ agenda to put drag queens in your house. That's what they're trying to do, ladies and gentlemen. Holy smokes. Here's Tucker Carlson saying that as a parent, why wouldn't you go in and just thrash the teacher?
You know, some teachers pushing sex values on your third grader. Why don't you go in there and thrash the teacher? You talk to a normal person's kids about sex in kindergarten, you get beaten up. You should be beaten up. Please.
Again, connecting the real problem of sexualizing children to the fake problem of mentioning you're gay. Mentioning, hey, guess what, people? Trans people exist. Gay people exist. So many different types of people exist. That's just a thing. And they say that the simple mentioning of it is talking about sex. You're sexualizing them, which is absurd, and it takes away from the real problems that should be addressed that have nothing to do with the identities they're obsessing over. And then here's just a quick compilation of how obsessed Tucker is with trying to make this connection.
Anderson Lee Aldrich committed mass murder because you complained about the sexualizing of children. Sexually mutilating kids. Sexually mutilating children. The sexual mutilation of children. The sexuality of children. People mutilating the genitals of children, running ads on Instagram promoting kiddie porn. Kiddie porn. Kiddie porn. Kiddie porn? It's an endorsement of kiddie porn. They are not doing it for a scientifically defensible reason. They are doing it because they believe in a very specific religious ideology. That's true. It's happening. It's absolutely real. You're not imagining that.
The more times he repeats that I promise this is true, it's facts, this isn't fake, it means it's definitely fake and not facts at all. And you've seen all of this, but again, there are kids in elementary school who get sexualized, who get groomed, and that needs to be absolutely addressed, and the people partaking in that need to be held accountable in the fullest extent of the law. Pretending like there's some left-wing LGBTQ drag queen agenda to sexualize children gets people hurt because it's a lie. Here's the last thing I want to show you in regard to this. An individual who survived the Pulse nightclub, another one of these LGBTQ nightclubs that were shot up, talking about this very topic.
Imagine what your thoughts were when you saw the news that this has happened again in another city, just like it happened to you and your friends. I'm just going to let you give us your reaction.
Yeah, thank you, Joy. And I'm angry tonight. I'm angry because this is what we warned would happen. This is what we warned would be the inevitable consequence of unmitigated, unbridled hate in this country. Now, you just saw what's been happening for the last few years. Right-wing grifters, including politicians like Ron DeSantis and Greg Abbott, they've been spewing this vile, hateful rhetoric about LGBTQ people. They've been trafficking in some of the oldest, darkest tropes against our community. They've been accusing us of posing a threat to children simply because we exist on planet Earth. And we warned them that inevitably this would result in violence, but they just couldn't help themselves. They couldn't help themselves from crafting one more fundraising email or hitting send on one more grotesque tweet. They couldn't help themselves as the temperature around the country continued to rise, as young people told us that life was getting less and less safe for them. They couldn't help themselves as armed protesters started showing up at drag shows across the country, or when white supremacists were being arrested outside of pride festivals. They couldn't help themselves when children's hospitals in Boston and other cities were getting bomb threats, having to install airport security terminals to keep people safe. They couldn't help themselves when a donut shop was firebombed for daring to advertise a drag show. And now 5 people went to a space that was supposed to be safe for them, a space like the one I knew well at Pulse Nightclub, and they came out in body bags. Dozens of people were injured, scars they're going to carry forever. An entire community was terrorized. They paid the price for this short-sighted, cynical, and sinister hate that these people have been pumping into the ecosystem. I am angry because I am tired of asking, of begging, of screaming and scratching and clawing for people to just see us as human. See us as your family members, your neighbors, your friends. Please, I am begging you to treat us with a basic level of decency and respect. I'm angry because we deserve to live. Those people deserved to live, Joy.
Absolutely could not have said it better myself. And it really does hit you, you know, the way he framed it, of going in to be safe, to, in many cases, celebrate that part of who you are, and then leaving in a body bag. And all of that because of a hate that is not just some fringe idea. It is not just a one-off. It is not just something that is very rare. It is part of the platform of much of the Republican Party right now, and the obsession of right-wing media. And this is what we got. This is what we got. And that has to be remembered every single time this conversation comes up. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to be a part of what makes this show possible, plus get access to the full video version of the show hours before any of the clips are uploaded to YouTube, plus get access to an extra full show every Saturday that only members can see, you can do so by going to patreon.com/Luke Beasley. That's patreon.com/Luke Beasley, and there is a link in the description.